This week, we're going to be looking at the average Super League attendances at the halfway point of the season. Super League comes to Scotland, and Nigel Wood's back at the RFL.
This is the Rugby League Outsiders set of 6, our weekly news show where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy from outside the Heartlands. So there is a huge divide between some clubs in terms of attendance and fan engagement. You've got some teams breaking the records with the number of people turning up for their games, and there is woeful results for the likes of Salford and Huddersfield, topping just over 4,000. So let's get into that, Carl.
Yeah, so I picked up an article on loverugbyleague.com and they've put together the average Super League attendances, which you got to say it's not 100% accurate at this point because we have some lopsided fixtures, don't we? Some teams play others more than it's not a true, but it does give us a good indication of where Super League teams are this season with their attendances. So if I was going to say to you, I'll fire some over to you actually. Who do you think's going to be top?
I think it's got to be perhaps one of the Hull teams, maybe the Wigan. Leeds are always pretty well attended. So, anyone of them?
Yeah, pretty good. You're not far off. I'll start at the bottom. So the bottom three sides, no surprise, are actually the bottom three sides in the table. So you've got Huddersfield Giants have currently got the lowest average attendances of Super League this year, just over 4,000. That's down by about 500 fans, that is. From last year, there were about 4,500 last year. So that's a little bit worrying them. They haven't had a great season, have they? Salford, 4,456, still doing all right. And then you got Cass at just under 7,000. However, Cass is also down by about 1,000 fans on last year.
That's incredible. I mean, I think that's a great turnout for Cass. To hear that there are 1,000 fans down is surprising to me. Huddersfield, we know their support has been dwindling for the last couple of years, and all credit to the Salford fans that keep turning up week in, week out. And there's some guy in one of the rugby league groups I'm in on Facebook, and he's just rallying round every week trying to get people to the game. Hats off to those guys for following through, because it must be pretty dismal down there at the bottom of the league.
Right, and then on to ninth then. You got Wakefield Trinity in ninth, 7,210 their average attendance. But you got to say, I think that's pretty much at capacity for Bellevue. I don't think they can get many more in there. Is there an indication of the trend there as well? Is that up or is that down? It's got to be up, surely. I don't know on that. Yeah, but I would have thought that'd be up on last. I mean, mind you, they were pretty much selling out last year in the Championship. I think it's probably an even keel, that one is. Lee, 7,800. That's fairly consistent with what they get, don't they? 7,000-8,000, higher on some bigger games. And then you got Catalan on 8,868. I think that's kind of what we expect from Catalan. They're usually around the 9,000 to 10,000 mark. I think it's dropped slightly. Mind you, they've had a big boost this weekend by Lee going over, because I think they took about 2,000 fans there this week.
Yeah, and same again. What is the trend there? Because they're having a terrible, terrible time, and I'm wondering if those fans are starting to dwindle down. But can you imagine the party when they pick up the next win? Like the place is going to be rowdy as hell.
Yeah, I've got to get to Catalan, by the way. It looks. I was watching some of the videos from outside the ground, and the fans look like they have a great time when they go to Catalan. Warrington sitting in sixth, 10,207 is their average attendance. Hopefully, it don't continue to drop, because there's a lot of fans left early, didn't they, at the weekend? Saints 10,950, so 11,000 for Saints. Pretty similar for Hull KR at 10,995. They're currently sat in fourth. Who's sat in third?
Mighty Leeds.
No, they're arch rivals, just over the over the bridge. Hull FC 15,057.
Crikey.
There's a big jump there. I didn't expect that to be as big as it is.
I wonder, because I mean that's Craven Park at like capacity and more, isn't it?
Yeah,
they've literally rolled out like a temporary stand as well, haven't they? So, but you've got to think like where do you find another 4,000 places to compete with Hull FC? You know,
I wonder if they increase the capacity at Craven Park, what they would actually get in there.
Do you think there'll be a stadium move? You have to move.
No, I think they're developing Craven Park, actually. I think that's on the cards. I think I've definitely seen they're putting like all-weather pitches in and training pitches and stuff like that. I don't know what they're actually doing at the stadium, but it certainly counts for it at the minute. It's costing them money, you would have thought, the fact that they can't get any more in there.
Well, maybe, but also you can start charging a bit of a premium for your season tickets and the like. I can't remember where they ranked on. We did a season ticket check-in at the start of the season.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Perhaps, predicted we were going to talk about this and looked at that, but maybe the season ticket prices are up to reflect the popularity of the team right now. So
either way, it's good to see
100%.
Full stadium every week. Yeah, so Hull FC are third with 15,057. Leeds are second. Just over 15,000 for them, 15,287. And then Wigan still the highest attendances with 17,444 average for Wigan, that is massive, isn't it? Massive numbers, that.
Yeah, it's huge numbers, and a big jump between first and second as well. So, there was a couple of thousand in it. I mean, you've got to say
2,000.
You've got to say, in a world where everything is online, the streaming services are just so popular. I know traditional TV and even satellite TV is starting to dwindle in popularity a little bit. The fact that there's, for some teams over 10,000 people turning up week in, week out, for those teams, it is incredible, really. And I think we bash our sport sometimes. We really do. We do pick out the negative things on the whole. But the fact that all those people turn out week in, week out and support their teams is commendable. So good effort, Rugby League fans. You get a pat on the back from us. Great story, Carl.
Yeah, I think I agree with what you said. I think Super League attendances are pretty healthy. And Rugby League attendances in general, I think we've got the Ashes coming up this year as well. So I think if you're RL commercial and you're looking at the numbers of fans coming through the gates, I think you'd be pretty happy with that, actually.
Right, let's move on to Tackle 2, and Super League hits Scotland. This is a world first where there's a Super League wheelchair game taking place in Scotland.
Yeah, Edinburgh Giants played their first ever game in the Wheelchair Super League this weekend. Great occasion for Rugby League in Scotland and a club that's really made their mark on the Rugby League landscape, created a great profile for themselves. The game on the pitch didn't go their way. Difficult afternoon for them. It was Giants 6, Leeds 114. So, I mean, they were playing the Super League champions rolled into town on week 1, which was always going to be difficult for them. But there were another number of other games took place this weekend as well. London 40, Halifax 40, repeat of the Challenge Cup final, ended in a draw. And then Wigan 80, Sheffield 4.
There's loads of stories around this, isn't there? So good effort to all those players that were playing this weekend. Going back to the Edinburgh Giants game against Leeds, so the subplot for that was that the former master in martingale, former Leeds coach, was taking on James Simpson, who was obviously was his understudy for a while, or player for him for a while.
Yeah, so I listened to the interview with James Simpson on 4020 actually after the game, and he basically said that the standards that they've got at Leeds Rhinos now, they were the standards that Martin Gill put in years ago for Edinburgh Giants at the Leeds Rhinos. They were the foundations that he built that squad upon. And I spoke to Martin after the game, and although he was disappointed with the loss, there was a lot of positives he could take away from it, really. Just the fact that it's happened, they've got the first game, and he was basically just saying, we've now got to learn to build a bit of resilience going into the rest of the league, and this can't be like a one-off. We know we need to build some resilience, get stronger, keep getting stronger, and keep building on the standards that we expect. They now know what to expect from a Super League game, and that's the first step on the ladder, I suppose.
Yeah, and he has the blueprint for making a winning team.
Yeah.
You know, he really has. If anybody can put a winning team together, it's him. So, you know, keep nurturing those players. By the way, bit of trivia for you. Martin Gill, our very first guest of the year, the Outsiders guest of the year, which I'm told he holds as like the highlight of his career.
Yeah, it's on his mantelpiece at home, that is. There were a couple of other firsts in this game, though. First ever wheelchair game with 2 female captains. So Olivia for the Edinburgh Giants, and then you got Jodie Boyd-Ward, who stepped in for the Rhinos as well. So yeah, but interesting.
Okay, so that was the first team, but there was a reserves grade team as well. So I mean, well, first of all, the big heartwarming story for me is that they can turn out a reserve team, which I think is fantastic for a team that's the first year in the Super League.
Well, first year in the Super League, they've only been going, 2 or 3 years in total, haven't they? So, yeah, I mean, Edinburgh Rugby League's thriving, wheelchair rugby league. Yeah, so their reserve side also played Leeds on the same day, but they won 32 points to 18. So when you look at the future for the Edinburgh Giants, green shoots are happening. It's positive news.
Yeah, another brilliant story. Let's move on to tackle 3 then, Carl, and we picked out an article where that ranked every Super League club for academy players used in 2025, and a couple of interesting things picked out of this article.
It's about Rugby League, just to mention them. They wrote the article. They've looked at all the players and how many academy players we've got, and I think the first thing to say is straight away Salford. We know what sort of season they've had. A lot of their players have left or, haven't been available for selection. So straight away, you're going to have Salford at the top of that. They've had to bring in loads of academy players this year. I don't even know how many players Salford have used this year, but it's a hell of a lot. But down the bottom end of the table, right, if I said to you, which team has used the least amount of academy players from their academy, who would you say?
I'd probably say a club that was strapped for finances, the likes of a Castleford. Perhaps, you know what I mean? I would kind of expect them to maybe be down there.
Complete opposite, mate. So the team at the bottom of this table with least academy players is Hull KR. They've only used one. There's only one player in their current setup who played academy at Hull KR, and that's Mikey Lewis. I mean, just happens to be one of the best players in Super League at the minute. But it's a really interesting fact, that, isn't it? That they've only used one academy player.
Yeah, and it's weird. It just almost proves the quality over quantity rule, doesn't it? I'm sure that's not the case, but yeah, really interesting. I didn't see that coming.
They used to have. I don't think it exists anymore. I mean, I know people from Hull will shout up in the comments and let us know, but at one point, didn't FC and KR have a joint academy? There was a joint Rugby League Hull academy at one point. I don't know if that exists anymore. I don't think it does.
Well, like a centre of excellence type
thing.
And then they divvy up the players between the two clubs.
I don't really know how it works, but I'm sure that existed at one point. I don't think that's in play anymore. But interesting that Hull KR are down the bottom of that table. But what I suppose you do say about that is just means that whoever is in charge of their recruitment is doing an absolutely cracking job.
Yeah, I agree. I'd be interested to see where those homegrown players are going for, the ones that are getting developed by Hull KR. Is it they just haven't got space in the first team, for their players, and therefore they're shipped out to other teams, and where they went, what happened to them, or are they just
developing some really great players, and they're able to finance the first team by just this production line of players? I don't know. Lee Leopards, number 2, they've only got one academy player in their setup as well, and that's Frankie Holton. Right, numbers start going up a bit here then. So Castleford in sort of the next on the line, they've got 6 players, and Wakefield Trinity have got 8. But let me roll this list of names off for you for Trinity. Ellis Lingard, Jack Croft, Josh Griffin, Tom Johnston, Max Jowett, Jay Pitts, Ollie Pratt, and Harvey Smith. So, I mean, if there's a case for an academy that's working for you, there it is, the blueprint Wakefield Trinity. I mean, all those players are making massive contributions to a Super League side at the minute.
Yeah, definitely. The Ollie Pratt especially stands out to me. He was, we tipped him as being a bit of a star for the season. Young emerging talent. Loved watching him when we went to the league game against Wakey. So, good effort. Next.
Catalan Dragons, 9 players. I mean, they're really starting to develop French talent now, which is something we were critical of a couple of years back, that Catalan were importing a lot of Aussies, weren't they? Because they didn't have a quota for years. They could bring in as many sort of Aussies and overseas players as they wanted. I don't think that's the case anymore. So now there is 9 Catalan players from their youth system in the Super League set, which is great. I suppose when you look at what's going on the field, though, is there a correlation going on there? Maybe. Huddersfield Giants have used 11 players this year from their academy. Warrington Wolves have used 11 players. I suppose part of that is down to injuries that Wire have had, but look at another side. If you look at some of the names on there, absolute gun players: Lindop, Ben Curry, Thewlis. I mean, the Thewlis brothers, should I say? Toby King. Some great players.
Yeah, impressive from Warrington. Yeah, right. Really good. Because in my mind, like you said before this article, I would have just thought, right, they've brought in lots of players from different clubs and from around the world. But actually, there is a thread of homegrown talent that runs through this team.
Yeah, 100%. And then on to the next side, a team we know has got a great academy. Leeds Rhinos have got 12 players in the squad this year who've come through the Leeds Academy. Funnily enough, there's 2 that have been there for knocking around Super League for years, in Callum Watkins and Ryan Hall, but they did come through the academy originally. And some star-studded players here. Harry Newman, Jack Sinfield has obviously played. He's going to be a future star, what you would have thought. Aledsky, Gannon, Lum, Ryan Hall, Tom Allroyd, Alfie Edgell, Ash Hanley, Cam Smith, another great production line. Next on the list, Wigan joint with Leeds with 12 players. We know that Wigan has probably got the best youth system in Super League. I think it's hard to argue against that. The big name that's come through in the last couple of years, Junior Nsemba, absolute star of the future. Well, he's a star now, isn't he? But it's going to be really interesting to see how he gets on the next couple of years. Harry Smith, Aviel, Faramond, Douglas Nsemba, Liam Farrell, Marshall, Tom Forber, Zach Eckersley, the list goes on. Now,
Wigan also got the most Liams in their academy promotions as well.
Yeah, and right. So when you said to me earlier, where are all the players from the Hull academies going? Looks like they all got to play for Hull FC. So you got Hull Care have only got 1 player from their academy set up. Hull FC have got 13 players.
Yeah.
Come through their academy. I'll name just a few of them: Brad Fash, Davy Litton, Harvey Barron, Lewis Martin having a great season, Tom Briscoe obviously has been there for years, and then you got all the Wills, Gardner, Hutchinson and Kirby. Right, so the top 2 then, I've already told you, Salford at top of the shop, 15 players, just had to use a load of academy lads this year. Yeah. The other side, right up the top of there, is St Helens. They've got 14 players from their academy. I think the big ones you got to mention at the minute: Owen Dagnall, Harry Robertson, Matty Lees, Morgan Knowles. There's some great players in there. Jack Wellsby, Johnny Lomax. The list goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it's important to remember that this is just for this season. But it would be a great stat if you could look at all the recruits they've done throughout the Super League era and see how many teams are actually developing their youth and what the numbers are there. But some great names.
Funnily enough, though, it means absolutely nothing on IMG points, does it? Which is often something that's been flagged up by fans. It don't matter if you're creating homegrown players or not. That doesn't mean anything for your IMG grading.
Yeah, that is a bit bizarre, and also something that can be gamed a little bit. If a club might not put any focus on developing their youth in the hope of gaining points in other aspects of the IMG. Well, that's if IMG survives.
Well, yeah, I think that was kind of what London did, wasn't it? Because London had an academy, and I think they were basically saying, well, it's costing us an absolute fortune to run this academy. This money could be better spent in other areas, developing the club in other areas. So I think they scrapped it. They're now rebuilding an academy out there, especially with now that Gary Everington's there and we've got investment coming in from overseas.
Another great story, Carl. So good effort picking that one out. Right, let's move on to the next tackle then. Tackle 4 and the viewers' mailbag, I like to call it. Right, so a couple of questions here that I've picked out, a couple giving me crap. So here we go. The first one from I am at level 54. Right, interesting name. One of you, no brackets, no prizes for guessing who, has a real issue with Trin, always writing them off, suggesting players aren't good enough when they clearly are. Please carry on, Mr. Williams. And a laughing face. The club will clip the hell out of this. If there was an award for the best media department, I have to say Wakefield Trinity have by far the best social media department. Right, a couple of things I want to pick out here. Right? First of all, I have no issue with Trin. I actually give them lots of credit for what they are doing this season, having a phenomenal season. But I do like a little bit of niggle in the comments. So you carry on, Mr. I am level 54. A little bit tongue-in-cheek. By the way, I completely agree with the social media at Wakefield Trinity. They're doing a cracking job. You know what I mean? And the fact that he clips our show every week is a good laugh as well.
I think it's worth pointing out that we've actually got a decent relationship with Wakefield Trinity's media man. So it's complimentary of us as we've been complimentary of them. So, a bit of a harsh comment.
By the way, we do follow on from this comment in our prediction video. So if you haven't gone across the channel and watched that yet, then please do. And we'll kind of follow this on. Right, next comment, Carl, I want to pick out. So this was based on we both went for Huddersfield to win last week.
Oh, yeah.
Right, which was a little bit off field, wasn't it?
We just know what we're talking about, don't we, mate?
Well, one game in 30 is not bad, I suppose. Matt Craig 13. So come on, Giants. This has aged well. Obviously celebrating the fact that we pipped them both to win. Yorkshire Pud 3781 said yes, Giants. So celebrating that win as well. And then Random Vids 100 put a smiley face, like a laughing face. So a couple of comments, 3 comments there, all celebrating that the correct prediction for both me and you.
I wonder which one of those comments is John Wilkin.
Yeah, I know he definitely watches these videos. Do you reckon?
Yeah, I reckon Wilkins Yorkshire Pud 137 or whatever his name.
He could be Random Vids 100.
Do you reckon he's in disguise?
Well, have you got a message for Wilkin if he is watching? Someone get this comment to Wilkin. Someone must know it.
Yeah, give us a sign this week on Sky Sports.
Right, moving on then. So this one, a little bit of a pat on the back, Carl. So this is from Paul Hulkar Wallace. Tell me you support Hulkar without putting it in your name. Paul Hulkar Wallace, and he's basically put best rugby league channel. There's great videos, great editing. You can tell you guys don't edit your videos on a Henry Hoover, and I'll leave the rest of the comment there. But suggesting that some of the podcasts and the YouTube channels are not quite up to standard.
Hang on a minute.
In the rugby league world.
Well, if they're editing on a Henry the Hoover, well, no wonder. What sort of a comment is that? Who's editing videos on a Henry the Hoover? It's a complimentary, and it will take it.
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, thanks. No, keep the comments coming. We do love them. We do love a bit of interaction there. There's some little side winders a couple of times, things that take us by surprise, but on the whole, take it all in good spirit, and we'll have a laugh. We've got thick skin, so keep them coming. Someone else that I think needs to be thick-skinned is Nigel Wood right now. Tackle 5, Carl, is this idea that Nigel Wood has been given the end of the season to turn out the results from his study of rugby league right now.
Yeah, so this were an article that were in the iPaper this week. So earlier on in the season, obviously there was a big reshuffle at the RFL. Nigel Wood was brought in. He couldn't take up an official role because it would affect funding from Sport England, I believe. So it was given this, I don't know what we call it, phantom job, interim, whatever the title was that it was given. So we were expecting this this review that the board, the clubs had brought him in because they wanted this mid-season review, and was like, I don't think rugby league fans in general, I'd say in general, we weren't really happy with it. There was talk of the NRL coming in, people were buzzing about that, and then obviously we had this panel put together to review the games, which I think is what a lot of the owners wanted. We spoke to Andy Maisie earlier on the year. He basically saying, look, we need to be going in a new direction, which is fine. But first hurdle, it sounds like they've already fallen. So we were expecting this strategic review, the 100th strategic review we've had in the last 100 years. We were expecting it in July. It now sounds like it's not going to be ready.
Yeah, I mean, some people saying that this is a bit of a farce. It makes the game look like a farce because obviously, the original chairman, Simon Johnson, was kicked out, ousted through a couple of personalities back in March. They then brought in Nigel Wood, and there was questions over that because of previous failures in a few different areas of the sport.
Yeah.
Then plus the failed, not really failed, but like the bodged Eddie Stobart sponsorship deal that was brought in as well. There's some people not happy about that.
The record losses, he left with a big bonus on the year that we had record losses as a sport. I mean, he did oversee the biggest Sky Sports deal that we ever had as a sport, which is great, and I think that's probably why the clubs wanted to bring him in. But yeah, there were a lot of question marks basically over him coming in, and sounds like there's been a lot of upset at the actual governing body as well. And it sounds like it's continuing.
Yeah, and even like former referees are having their say. James Child reported saying that, it feels like the game's in a mess.
Well, James Child was put on the panel, wasn't he? He was part of the strategic review. I don't think he lasted very long.
Another fan sort of saying that this screams of like a closed culture, self-interest, decision really. What's your actually feelings now then, Carl? I mean, did you expect the results from this interim study to be delivered in a timely manner, or did you predict a bit of a delay?
That was the absolute minimum I would expect, especially when there was all this noise about how they weren't happy with things, and it's like, okay, well, your first test is to deliver this strategic review on time, so as a sport, everybody can look at it, go, right, let's make a move. Let's go off in a different direction. And now it's just hanging over the sport. There's rumours are that it might not be ready for another 5 months. How the hell can it be that late? You got to speak to the stakeholders of the sport, make some decisions, and they're saying, look, it needs to happen. It needs to be urgent, and yet we're straight away it's been delayed. So I aren't happy with that. I don't know about you. I mean, we aren't running sport, but it feels like there needs to be some urgency about this.
I wonder what's holding it back. What is delaying this? Because if it's information from the clubs, that don't make sense because the majority of the clubs voted him in.
Yeah, exactly.
So then if it boils down to other aspects of the game, well, why wasn't that like foreseen as a potentially being a problem? Like you say, 5 months, like that screams that we haven't even got the information in yet. Not that we're trying to present it into like a digestible format or crunching the numbers and coming up with another plan. It's like 5 months where we're nowhere near even getting the information in, and that's a little bit worrying for me. And I'd like more information on this. Now, bearing in mind, it just seems to be one reporter that is reporting this, albeit it's being distributed on a few different platforms.
I think John Davidson wrote the article. I think it was John that wrote the article. And well, he's basically saying, I mean, we'll know when it all comes out in the wash, but I think he's basically saying that Nigel's now going to get voted in as the chairman? The chairman of the RFL. And there's a lot of problems with that.
Well, one of the problems is that anybody that has had a stake in another club, there is a conflict of conflict.
Yeah.
Does this extension take him beyond that 12 months? Has he stood down as his? Yeah, but
Bulls put a statement out saying that he had stood down as ownership of Bradford Bulls, but it ain't. I mean, I can give you my answer to this as a Bradford fan. I don't like how this looks. I'll be completely honest with you. So I've always said with Bradford, like, they've got to earn, if they're ever to get back in Super League, they've got to earn it through all the correct channels. we've got an IMG grading in place. We've got to go through the letter of the rules. We've got to hit all this criteria to get back in Super League. Now, I know what a lot of fans say from other clubs is like, oh yeah, Nigel Wood's now in charge of the RFL, so Bradford will get brought back into Super League. If Bradford do get back into Super League, I think this could be really damaging for the club, because I do believe that we know Jason Hurst a little bit, who's heading up the Bulls, and I know that they've had a lot of investment into that club. There's a big consortium of people that are within Bradford now. The club doesn't have any debts. They've wiped all the debts,
which is incredible.
It's actually running on a profit, which is, you can't say that for most Super League teams. Although it's a very small profit, it is a club that's running on a profit. They're performing on the field.
Second in the
table. And there's a lot of things going right at Bradford. Yes, we all know what the state of the ground is in. So let's just imagine Bradford have hit all this criteria, and on their own merit, they can get back into Super League next year. That could now end up looking terrible if Nigel Wood is in charge of the RFL.
But on the same token,
because you know what opposing fans are going to say.
Just to play a little bit of devil's advocate,
yeah, go for it.
Like if he is the right man for the job, which some people suggest he was. I mean, we spoke to some of the chairmen before, Andy Mays, and he was like, we think he's the right man for the job. Then maybe he shouldn't be held back because of that. Because of how Bradford might look if they get promoted. There's a lot of ifs.
Yeah, there's a lot of ifs.
You know what I mean? So it is a bit of a tough one. And then, as I've always said with this, if he doesn't do this, who does? Because we've tried bringing in people from other sports. Yeah. You know what I mean? And, IMG.
Robert Elston, I remember when he came in. Yeah.
Who had a track record of developing other sports, very, very well. And that didn't quite, maybe we didn't give him the chance. I don't know.
I don't think we give him enough chance.
So yeah, it is a bit of a mess, and I can't help but agree with what James Childer said, that it makes the sport look like it's in a mess, and the fact that it's a 5-month delay, to me at the minute with very little information, it just doesn't seem acceptable.
Do you know what we can say? I think everybody can agree on this. It's a PR disaster. This is. From the first minute this happened, it's been a complete PR disaster. And no matter what comes out of this committee that they've put together, I think it could already be too damaging for the sport as a whole, just from the decisions the clubs have made.
And do you know what? It takes us incredibly close to the Ashes series. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also really, really close to the World Cup next year. So what are the ramifications for this going to be? There's just so many unanswered questions and what ifs and what thens and all these questions. Do we need more information from the RFL? As a collective of rugby league fans, do we need more information? Do we need an interim report? We
don't need an interim report. We just need this to be done on time. That is the absolute basics of it. That report needs to come out beginning of next month. We need to get on with it, make some decisions, move on. Not have the worst thing we do as a sport is just have stuff hanging over our heads, not knowing what direction we're going in.
But same again, and listening to you now, what I'm getting there is like, if we haven't got the full picture, we can't present the report. Because you can't really act on half-assed information.
Why is it late?
Well, you're asking the wrong person, mate.
Well, yeah, but that's my question. Why is it late? What possible reason could it be for being this late?
Maybe it's just that complex. And there's that. Because it's a game-wide review. And
mate, there's 12 teams in Super League. There's how many teams have we got in Championship? 13, 14, and 10, 11, 12 in League One. That's only a number of stakeholders. Mate, you've spent one day with every club. You've gone round them all in 2 months.
Is not the game wide include the grassroots though? Or are you just talking to development officers?
I don't. We've only got 2 development officers, one in the south and one in the north. That's 2 days, right? We've done that. Tick grassroots off as well. I doubt they're going around. I doubt they're going around every grassroots club in country.
No, I know. But by the time they've polled people, they've called meetings and got people in the room, to discuss kind of stuff. You can see time ticking away. What I'm saying is it much more complex than we're giving it credit for? And should we say to them, have as much time as you freaking want?
No, because we've got the current TV deals are coming up next year. We've got the NRL showing interest in the sport. I don't care what anybody says; they're definitely showing interest. You only have to look at the partnerships that are being made with, London Broncos with Australian investment. You got Hull KR have now just made a deal with North Queensland Cowboys. You've got Newcastle have just set up a partnership with who have they set up a partnership with? Another NRL team, which also includes York. Just make some decisions, get some stuff happening. PR disaster is what it is.
Say that again.
PR disaster. I mean, we're talking about it because it's a PR disaster.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit shocking. Right, speaking of PR disasters, let's move on to the Williams Weekly. So this week, I just want to talk about, or get a conversation going on about the Captain's Challenge after 15 rounds, as we're sat here right now. Is it good or is it bad? Now, I've got a couple of different takes on it. Previously, you'll remember back to 25th of February, I think it was Total RL, ran a poll about, what is the state of this? And it was pretty much thirds. Okay, so 38.95% of fans in League Express poll it was, said it's a great idea and we should persevere with it. 31.5% of fans feel it didn't work and wasted far too much time. And then there's about 20% of people that think it's a decent idea, but it just needs a bit of refinement. So that was back in February. And I just wonder, what is your take on the Captain's Challenge right now? Do you think it's good, bad? What points? Don't overthink it. Just answer me now, good or bad?
Bad.
And the reasons
overall, I think it's bad. The reasons being, I think we don't give our referees enough credit because I generally believe that 80%, 90% of the time they get the decisions right. The reason I don't like it is slowed the game down so much. But there's a wider picture here. It's between the Captain's Challenge and the slower decisions that we're getting on the video referee together are just creating this super. I mean, what was the Warrington game? I think Sam Burgess said the other day that the Warrington game was nearly 2 hours. That is far too long. So, in principle, I like the idea, but I don't think it's really worked.
Let's just have a look at this. So after 11 rounds, there'd been 133 Captain's Challenges with 47 being successful. So what that suggests to me is like teams are gaming it a little bit. And we know that some teams are using it as strategic rest towards the end of the game.
Yeah, I can't stand that. There's like a minute left on the clock, and the team's got to defend their own line. So they'll just throw a Captain's Challenge up just to give themselves another 2 minutes rest.
Well, interestingly, at this point, the whole KR have had, at the time of this poll, had done one successful challenge in 8. You know what I mean? So it's definitely a weird one.
Have you got the stats on who's the best team at Captain's Challenge?
I have. Leeds are suggested to have made the smartest use of their Captain's Challenges.
Right.
This is reported by Love Rugby League. 5 out of 10 challenges correct, which is pretty. It's like a 50% rate, success rate.
Yeah, but which is
pretty good. But yeah, even that's not.
I suppose if 50%, I suppose if those 50% ended up changing the course of a game, and therefore the value is there, then I suppose you have to you could argue that we need it. But like I say, I think if we're going to have it, the game's got to be shortened. So overall, the video referee decisions have got to be made quicker. Interestingly, the last 2 weeks, I really think the video referees have stepped it up. I don't know if you've noticed on Sky, they have been a lot quicker. Because we've been having sometimes they overlook the same replay 4 times. He's like, We saw it the first time. You don't keep playing it over and over again. But I think this week, last 2 weeks, been a lot quicker.
I think they've had to. I think there's been a lot of dismay in the process. You know what I mean? They'll be like, okay, right, I want to see if he's onside. Watch that 3 or 4 times. Right, I want to see if his foot's on the line. Watch that 3 or 4 times. Right, let's have a look at the grounding now. We'll know.
Don't look at the grounding. We know he scores.
And then the other thing as well is in the replay, some of these replays, the referee is within yards of the grounding.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, we don't need to look at that. And I know they've got to follow this process, make sure you get the decision right. But I think it takes that the fact that every now and again you're going to have a decision go against you, and that's sport. That's sport, you know.
Yeah.
But it takes that out. Like, we've got to analyse and work out what is the right and wrong. Anyway,
where do you end it? Like, you could analyse every decision throughout a game, couldn't you? Like, where do you stop? You start with the tries, and then you end up looking at head-eye tackles, and then we have a captain's challenge. It's like, at what point do you just say then too much is too much?
Yeah, I asked our favourite AI assistant to do a bit of an assessment on the news information that's currently out there on the old tinterwebs, and to come up with a pro argument and an against argument. And this is what they came up with, starting with the pro argument. So supporters argue the captain's challenge adds a crucial layer of fairness and accountability. With so much riding on tight decisions, giving teams a limited right to challenge helps correct game-changing referee errors without overcomplicating the flow. Fans say it empowers leaders on the field and adds a bit of tactical drama like a coach's challenge in the NFL. Comments?
I don't. Who's ChatGPT interviewed to get them comments?
Well, he'll have taken assessment of the thing. Anyway, do you not? You've obviously got your opinion. Let me give you the anti. Right. The anti-captain's challenge bit now. Critics believe the rule disrupts the game's flow and undermines referee authority. They argue it invites gamesmanship, with captains fishing for reversals rather than accepting marginal calls. Some fans feel it's a gimmick borrowed by other sports, or borrowed from other sports, and that Rugby League's fast pace makes it a poor fit, slowing things down for a little real benefit. So, you still unchanged, Cal?
Yeah, I liked it when we brought it in. I thought for all those reasons you just stated, but there's too many stoppages in the game at the minute. And especially with how long we're looking at tries, I'd say at this moment in time, get rid of Captain's Challenge. And back the referees, because the referees are... I think we've got a really good set of referees at the minute.
No, I completely agree. And I think the more you do this and the more you can, in the cold light of day, slowing it down to fraction of the speed, to pick it apart in minute detail, all you're doing is just adding distrust for our referees. You're picking them apart. It's like when you have these court cases where, you know what I mean, they remove emotion, they remove the context, look at the facts, and then make a decision on that. And that's not how life is. That's really not how life is, and it's not how sport is. But we're trying to make it really clinical. For me, I like the idea of being able to challenge those decisions, but I don't like the idea of slowing down the game. And I don't like the idea of getting into the dying seconds and someone just pulling a captain's challenge out of their arse to have a breather.
What about this?
Go on.
What about this then, right? Do away with the video referee. Well, don't do away with it, but you keep your captain's challenge, and if you want to challenge decision of a try, you got to use your captain's challenge for that. That would speed the game up.
Say it again.
So at the minute, the referee can go to the big screen, can't he, whenever he wants.
Whenever he wants, yeah.
Right.
Well, no, that's not entirely true. There are some decisions he can't check with the video referee, but most of the time. For
a try, the referee can go to the video screen, right? He could do that for every single try.
Well, they do.
Often they do.
Not for majority, yeah.
Referee, you go back to referee has to make a decision, right? He gives a try or he gives a no try. But the captains are allowed to challenge. They can use the captain's challenge to challenge the ruling of a try. That would make it more interesting, wouldn't it? Because then you won't get your captain's challenges just getting wasted on anything.
Yeah, that's a good idea, that. Because you can only use it if a try is scored. Therefore, the idea of using it...
No, I think you can use it at any point.
No, you can't. You've got to score a try.
No. I think you get a captain's challenge each, right?
Yeah, no, but you have... What you're saying is they can check a try.
Yeah.
But they have to have scored a try in order to,
No,
so
but
you can't use it at any point.
No, I think you can still use it at any point.
How? If they haven't scored a try, if they haven't crossed the line?
Because you can still use it for if you think the ball's been ripped out and incorrectly. But if you get it wrong, you lose your captain's challenge. And then if you want to challenge a try, you can't challenge a try because you've run out of captain's challenges.
No, right. Either you've not said it right or I've misunderstood. So you said you can only use it to challenge whether it was a try or not. But what you're actually saying is any penalty.
Any penalty,
right,
or any try. But
we're trying to make it simpler.
But there's no referee going to the big screen every try.
So no video referee.
No video referee. Referee gives a try or he gives a no try.
Rugby League started this video referee thing, didn't they? Do you remember?
Yeah, we did.
Super League on Sky TV started it, and it was revolutionary across sports. But long before football got hold of it, and all this. It's weird how it's almost like
gone full circle.
It's like the snake eating its own tail. You know what I mean? It's like it's gone full circle and it's becoming a bit of an enemy.
Because there's too much, isn't there? There's too much now.
Too much too long.
It's slowed the game down. Everything we've done in this sport is to speed the game up. Like we even started removing scrums a couple of years back, didn't we? So we just have a play of the ball now for restarts and stuff. But yeah, the video referee decisions, they're gone forever. Yeah, I think I'm right there. Well, each team gets a captain's challenge.
Yeah,
we stop going to video ref for all the tries all the time. And if you want to challenge it, then you use your captain's challenge. Get it right, keep it. Get it wrong, it's gone.
You're out of here. Interestingly, and does this justify it? And I'm sure there'll be one set of fans say it's justified and one set of fans that says it's not. Looking at the Challenge Cup, bearing in mind that it was made on the decision, of a video referee decision. So does that
what was his on-field decision? I can't remember. Was it a try? His on-field decision?
I can't remember. It seems like a bloody month ago, but
I think his on-field decision was a try. So yeah. So you got it right.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So I'm pretty sure like that was the Warrington fans saying, nope, ditch it. And all the Hull KR fans like, 100% keep it. It's amazing, best thing ever.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's interesting talking point, I think. And I think it's something that you and I will keep an eye on for the rest of the season because it needs, if nothing else, it needs some refinement. It needs tidying up. It needs reducing down in time. We've got to get better at it. And I'm a little bit like you. I don't like the idea of teams just, like they've got a captain's challenge in the back pocket and just use it to get a bit of a breather. That's not the spirit of
How about this then? If you use your captain's challenge and you get it wrong, sin bin 10 minutes. So not only do you lose your captain's challenge, you lose a player off at pitch. That'll stop them from just Mickey Mouse using it at the end of a game.
Well, they wouldn't use it, would they?
No. No, because it'd stop it. That's what I mean. We've already saved time.
No, but they'd never use it. Right, what is your take on this? Is this a bit of a non-story that we've just cobbled together, or do you think it does slow down the games? Do you think it has an effect? Have you seen any games that, in order, if they hadn't have had the captain's challenge, it would have been like an out-and-out, like a miscarriage of justice, or is it saved games? Is it meant that teams have got the right result at times? Because I'm not completely sold on it. I'd love to hear what your take on this is.
They don't have it in the Championship. And you don't hear people shouting up all the time about miscarriage of justice in the Championship.
No, they just take the referee's decision and they have to get on with it, yeah. Right, okay, so that is it for the set of six this week. Carl, anything else to shout about on the channel?
Check out our Lee Leopards behind the scenes video. I mentioned it in our predictions show. But yeah, we go behind the scenes, look at the inner workings of the club. You get to see what's going on backstage for what they call the greatest show in Super League. So yeah, watch the video and give us your thoughts. What do you think?
Until next time, take care.